You're listening to ThunderQuack Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the ThunderQuack Podcast Network, Stranger Things 2 Spoilercast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
I'm your other host, Amanda Konkin.
And I'm here too.
That's not what you're supposed to say. What's your name? I thought that you'd be able to tell by the way that we both said our names. That's all you have to do.
Crystal Cohen.
Yay. Hi, Crystal.
The guest, the other host.
You're a host.
Yeah, you're a host. So sometimes, Crystal, if you listen to Quiver Podcast, you may have heard Crystal every once in a while bringing in Kara to hang out with us and then going away.
Mostly trying to chase Kara to not come into the room and then...
Or removing Pepper every once in a while as well. That happens too. But you've actually watched Stranger Things.
So we can podcast.
So we can actually talk about it.
Yay. It's good.
Yeah. So you didn't watch Stranger Things when I first watched it, because I watched it by myself.
Yes.
The first season. But then, I don't know, I don't even remember why we started watching it. I think I was just, I talked about it so much that you were like, oh, I want to see it. Right? Or did somebody else make you want to watch it? Crystal never listens to me. I give recommendations, and I'm like, oh my god, this show's so good. She's like, yeah, that's nice.
I think that
it's literally a plot from Modern Family episode that I watched.
Yeah.
Anyways,
true.
Sorry.
It's real life, though. I think that you wanted to binge it because you watched the first...
That means check and see if Kara's still asleep. She's asleep.
Yeah.
She's asleep.
Continue.
I think you had wanted to binge it the weekend that it came out.
No, I didn't know. When the first season of Stranger Things came out, I actually was like one of the last people in my friend group to finish watching it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it took me a little while.
It took me until this summer to watch Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I was real late to the Stranger Things party. And the thing for me is that even last year, during Halloween at my work, our team did a Stranger Things room. That was our contribution. We did like you do decorating for different rooms. And I didn't get it. I didn't know what they were doing, but I was like, sure, I'll help you guys. But it wasn't until the summer, and just one day I was like, fine, I've been hearing enough about this. I should just watch it. And I straight up, I watched 5 episodes in a row and then got up the next day and watched the remaining one. So I did binge it, but I binged it real late. Came to the party real late.
That's the thing about Netflix, though, is that it's asynchronous watching, right? It's not like Arrow or Star Wars Rebels, where it airs on a night and by the next day, everybody who really cares that doesn't have an extenuating circumstance has watched it.
Yeah, because
right?
you just...
because you watch it when it airs, right? Or soon after, within 24 hours. But with Netflix, and we see this with the Marvel shows as well, there are different tiers of people. So the people that watch it all in one day, right? Especially with Stranger Things, which is only about 9 hours, so it doesn't really take that long. You could feasibly watch it all in one day as one big movie.
I did do that for Stranger Things too. Yep. But because I knew it. I planned for it this year though. I was like, comes out October 27th. I get the weekend off, October 28th. I'm just sitting at home and watching Stranger Things. And I did. And it was glorious.
And then you have other people like us who have kids that have
commitments.
And commitments. And it took us a little while to finish it. Especially those last 2 episodes, because everything that I heard from everybody was watch the last 2 episodes together.
Oh, right.
So,
so to have a 2-hour chunk.
Yeah. It took a little while to get that chunk. But we did manage to watch it in just over a week.
Yeah.
So, pretty quick. And then there are other people that they'll kind of watch it slowly, but they don't care about spoilers and whatnot.
Well, that's how we're watching Atypical.
Yeah, but Atypical is not really
it's not a bingey show.
Nobody's I shouldn't say nobody, maybe there's an Atypical podcast out there somewhere. Atypical is a great show, by the way, for people who haven't checked it out. It's really good.
But you're sort of watching it when you can.
My friend group has binged it.
It's it's a little bit more sitcom-y. It's not it's a single camera comedy.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But it's a little different. But some people come really late to this stuff. But that's the great thing about these podcasts, is that
Yeah.
You can listen to this whenever you finish.
I feel real bad because the day that I was watching it all, my friend was like, can I come over? And I was like, well, you can, but I'm watching Stranger Things and I'm on the last couple episodes. And she's like, well, I haven't seen any of it. That's fine. So she came over and watched the last 3 episodes of Stranger Things of season 2 without having any context for stuff at all. So then she really, my friends were over at my house and I came over to my house because they were already there. And they were watching Stranger Things season 2 from the beginning. So she's now watched the last 3 episodes and then started watching the first episode of the second season and was kind of like, why is the girl in a cabin and who is she and why is she in the forest? And it's like, you don't know who 11 is. You don't understand.
It's really the worst. Like, and you know what? Honestly, not watching a show like Stranger Things, it's like everybody's got Netflix.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, watch it.
It's almost socially irresponsible not to watch it at this point. Unless you hang out with people who don't care. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But if you hang out with people who care, like your friends, then you have to watch it. You have to watch these shows.
Well, that was the thing, is that it was because our buddy, I had seen it and Ryan had seen it, but Nate hadn't seen it and Stacia didn't care. So they had all been deciding what to watch, and Nate's like, sure, I could watch it. And then we wound up watching that one episode. And then they watched just one more, and then we did the rest of the night, and then he's like, well, yeah, I could watch one more. And then he's like, I gotta go home and watch this whole thing. It's like, yeah, because it gets addictive.
Yeah.
But that brings us maybe to a first point.
Yeah.
Was Stranger Things 2 as binge-worthy as Stranger Things, the original?
They're different, right? Because when the first one is always a little bit more special, because you don't, especially when you tune in for the first episode of Stranger Things, you kind of know what you're getting. And I had seen the trailers. Trailers during upfronts of last year, because it came out last year during the summer.
It came out during the summer?
Oh, it came out during the summer in 2016. Cool. And I had seen the trailer during upfronts, which was back in May.
Yeah.
And was like, holy crap, this looks like it's going to be an awesome show that's right up my alley.
Interesting.
I didn't expect it to be a big thing.
Right, you just thought it was
going to be
you.
like me and Scott and some of the other the other podcasters and whatever, and that it would be this cool sort of cult thing. And then when it aired, when it was first released, I watched the first couple episodes and was like, oh, this is really cool, and told a couple of friends about it, and then they watched it and were like, oh, that's really cool.
And then it just went kaboom.
And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks after I finished the first season, everybody was talking about it, and they pushed it real hard, because in Vancouver, the SkyTrains had huge posters, Stranger Things wraps on them, as well as the interiors of them were all with that great
they did a lot of advertising,
illustrated art. So season 2, I feel wasn't advertised as hard, because they've already made the inroads.
Basically, if you were on Netflix, you got to advertise to you there, because people were like, people know what this is.
But Stranger Things 2, and this is the thing that people complained about the most, is that they're like, oh, well, it's more like a sequel to Stranger Things than it is the first season, which was a bunch of homages and references. And to me, it's well, yeah, because now Stranger Things
is its own thing.
But it is still full of a lot of really great references.
Did you watch the honest trailer? Honest trailer of it, which is really good. Where they did the honest.
I can't watch honest trailers anymore, because one of the guys at Screen Junkies was accused of a whole bunch of. He's part of the whole everybody being accused of sexual misconduct.
I feel I remember you talking about that actually. Yeah. I accidentally watched it. It was on my Facebook feed as I was scrolling through. Okay, fine. I won't talk about it so people don't go watch it.
Well, no, it's fine. No. But
it's good for you for supporting content that is worthy of support. Anyways, I'm sure
it was a funny thing. The content that they produce is funny.
Yeah.
But
it was just about what it is that it was about the first one and But I kind of rebelled against watching Stranger Things when it first came out, because it was advertised everywhere, and I was like, you're not going to make me watch something just because people want me to watch it and just because
Amanda
it's popular.
Hangs out with a lot of hipsters, and then she also hangs out with me. And so it's Amanda, she's torn between two worlds.
But the good thing about it is that
example of it.
I didn't watch any trailers about it. I actually straight up didn't know what it was about when I watched it, and I'm not attached to 80s nostalgia. I didn't like it because it was nostalgic. I just liked it because it's good storytelling.
And that's the thing, is that it's a really good show.
Yeah.
That uses all of the tropes of the best of the 80s.
Yeah.
Brings it all together into one thing. So if you don't have that nostalgic attachment, you're just watching a show that is the boiled down essence of everything that was awesome from the 80s.
Yeah.
So season 2, I feel like, is not for fans of 80s genre films as much as it's for fans of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Right? And there, like I said, there are some really cool references in it. There's obviously the whole Ghostbusters element. The Pollywog is very... There's even a musical cue in it. There's a sting that's very intentionally... It's the Gremlins theme, but it's not the Gremlins theme.
Right.
But it's very like the dun 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 dun, dun like when it escapes and like runs out of the room, that music plays for a second and it's like, oh, this is like the royalty free version of the Gremlins. Theme. Which I thought was really cool. So there's still stuff there for people who want to see it, but want to like notice it, but it's not. It's not as overt as the first season, for sure. Do you have anything to say?
No, I really like just being in the room for this private podcast.
Yeah.
What was your, like, did you have the same connection to 80s nostalgia? Like, were you more like me or like Mike when it came to like...
Oh, I was more like you, I think, where I don't really have a huge connection to the nostalgia. And I think... I recall why I didn't watch it with you initially is because you told me it was scary, or I thought it was scary based on some of the trailers.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to, and we had a tiny baby.
Oh, yeah, okay.
No. Stranger Things season 1 was out before she was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the scary element is definitely...
It was last July.
Yeah, I understand that the scary element is definitely one of the reasons I did not watch it at the first time as well. Because I'm not into horror movies at all.
Yeah, I thought it was a creepy, like, based on the advertising that I'd seen, which wasn't a ton.
Yeah.
I thought that it was, like, creepy and horror, 80s horror-esque. Which it is more...
It's more monster movie.
It's more monster movie. It's more mystery monster.
But the thing is that 80s horror movies
were
like Stranger Things. They weren't like modern horror movies, right? Because you didn't watch scary movies before Scream, right?
Right, yeah.
Scream is like one of your first scary movies that you watched. And you like the Scream movies, but the Scream movies... Well, they're the only ones that you've ever watched.
Same with me though. Like Scream 2, I have very vivid memories of like watching that as my like a horror movie that I actually was like, this is fun. But I didn't have it. I didn't have the connection. But then you go back and you look at
Scream redefined it, and
it's
all
a different
of a sudden
genre.
Horror became slasher movies primarily. Like slashers existed before with like Friday the 13th and Halloween and stuff.
Which I think is what I think of when I think of it.
But that's not like the movies that I grew up on that were quote unquote scary movies were much more like Ghostbusters or Gremlins, which are actually like not that bad. Or like even the scarier end of that would be something like Leprechaun.
Well, right? Leprechaun's what I go to in my head as like a scary movie.
Leprechaun legit scared me, but I was also 7 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's like now if I watch Leprechaun, it's like Jennifer Aniston, a Lucky Charms joke. Like this isn't a scary movie, right? But then scary movies evolved into the Saw franchise and like the grotesque horror,
creepy.
The body horror type stuff.
I think
of more modern.
It is still the first season was still way scarier than the second season. I think at least the monster coming out of the wall. Was real creepy, and that they didn't have those kinds of moments in this season.
There was a lot more suspense in season 1, and season 2 was a lot more adventure.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Yeah. But I do feel like they doubled down on the things that people really liked, right? And the things that people really liked were the characters, and so Stranger Things 2 is much more character focused, and that the thing is that is very much the formula of an 80s franchise. It's like the first one is about the plot, and it's very heavily focused on the monster or whatever the bad guy is, right?
Yeah.
And then you come back for the second one, and the second one is an exploration of the characters that everybody fell in love with that made that franchise into a franchise.
Right, yeah.
Right? So, like, you look at Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 2, the bad guy is not as good, the plot's not as tight, but the character moments are all great, right? Because it's like, well, people just want more of those characters. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, and I think, too, like, with Jaws and with other things, like you said, season 1 was much more suspense with the monster in the wall. But once you've seen the monster, you can't do that again.
Well,
once
you've defeated the monster, what do you do, right?
Yeah, it's like,
and so the solution in this season is the Demodogs, which is like, okay, we're not going to give you 10 Demogorgons because that would be jumping the shark a little bit.
Yeah,
but we'll give you 10 like larva Demogorgons, which is in itself a reference to the Aliens franchise.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, they like it takes on this other form, right? Which Aliens 3 did really well. But yeah, like there's a lot of stuff broken down, and it's what I really like about the current pop culture climate is that everybody was complaining a few years ago about like there's too many sequels, there's too many of these reboots and stuff like that, and then Stranger Things can come along, and I think that The Force Awakens did the same thing, where it took a genre, or in the case of Force Awakens, a very specific genre format of Star Wars, and boils it down, rehashes it, but gives you something completely new at the same time. Because it's people who grew up on this stuff.
I just, while we've been talking, realized that there's a reason why it's called Stranger Things 2 and branded Stranger Things 2, not
it's a
the
sequel.
Second season of Stranger Things. It's literally a sequel. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Ugh, I hate it when stuff is so wanky like that. It's like, whatever, sure, I get that it's part of your trope. I feel like an idiot. I just got that right now. But anyways,
I hope they do is that Stranger Things Season 3 will not be Stranger Things 3, because that's just doing the same joke again. That's just doing the same trope again. Yeah. But they'll do a Stranger Things : and then it'll have a subtitle. And the Stranger Things will be small, and then because it was Star Wars, and then it was Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and then when Return of the Jedi came out, it was Star Wars was really small, Return of the Jedi. Because at that point, saying the word Jedi, people knew that you were talking about Star Wars, right? So with Stranger Things, they'll...
Return of the Demogorgon.
It'll be something...
11 gets stronger.
It'll be something very, with one of their buzzwords, right? With one of their terms. And then they'll be able to sort of put Stranger Things sort of up. Yeah, but let's talk about like the most divisive episode of the season, which is episode 7. Yeah. The Lost Sister, I think is the name of the episode, where 11 goes, she finds her mother and then goes to
see her sister.
Yeah, I can't remember the city. Right? Is it Chicago?
Isn't it like a big city?
I don't think it's Chicago.
Isn't that like the whole trope? It's like the punks of the like big city.
It is a big city, but I don't think it's Chicago.
Because aren't they in Hawkins, Illinois? Isn't that where Hawkins is? So they go to the Chicago.
Yeah, maybe it is Chicago. No, it's Hawkins, Indiana. It's in Indiana. So how did you enjoy that episode? I really liked that episode. That's actually probably one of the standouts for me from this season. Right. Even though a lot of other people I think are kind of down on it, but it tapped into a different genre of 80s movies that isn't necessarily what people signed up for. Yeah. Like they thought that they were going to get another season full of the same stuff from season 1.
Right, and that's what everybody's saying is like this was allowed them to look at a different part of
because it was very much like that, the punk, even a little bit of the 70s, because it had a little bit of like the Death Wish, which goes into the 80s, but it had a little bit of that. It reminded me like the punk aesthetic reminded me a lot of Short Circuit too. When he at the end of the movie when Johnny Five meets up with all the punks and then they rebuild him into punk.
What?
Johnny Five. You've seen Short Circuit too, right?
No.
No.
But I understand the reference.
Yeah, so there's a lot, and there's also sort of like a little bit of the Lost Boys stuff like that. These are references that you guys don't understand, aren't they?
No, yes. I don't understand the Lost Boys either, but...
So then, without having all of the references to the 80s that's contained within that, did you guys like the story focusing on 11 going and doing that, or...?
Well, because to me... So here's the thing. I thought it was the coolest option ever to open Stranger Things 2 with this new character who we'd never seen before. Yes. And I was like, I want to know more about this chick. I want to know more about this woman. And the only thing that was sad to me about that episode is that I wanted it to be less about 11 and more about 8. Like, I wanted 8 to come back and have to help her in the end or something. Yeah. Like, that there was some connection to that character. And that's the thing that was the most disheartening to me, is I'm like, surely they wouldn't go through all this effort to introduce all these characters just to lose them. And that's exactly what happened.
So the end of the season, the final shot, is the Mind Flayer... The shadow monster over top of the school, right? Yeah. Which to me indicates that it clearly knows where 11 is.
Right, yeah.
And it's coming for her, right? Like that it's like the next one's going to be like here's a good title for it, is like Stranger Things, the Mind Flayer's Revenge, right? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It's like super cheesy.
Yeah.
That like Freddy's New Nightmare sort of thing, right? Like that sort of idea. And I think that what they're building to, I think that the whole point of 8 showing up at the beginning of the season and then an episode dedicated to exploring that character and her relation to 11 is the idea that there are other people out there that are a part of this program, or at least other people who might have similar abilities.
Yeah, yeah.
The idea that the abilities are not all identical.
Yeah.
And that they might have different aspects to them.
Yeah.
And that they didn't stop the Mind Flayer.
Yeah, no, it's still there. They just shut the big they just closed the gate. And that's the thing.
But there was more than one gate in season 1.
Yeah,
there was the gate in the tree.
Yeah,
and there's also the gate that she opened in the school.
Yeah,
right.
Well, and the thing is, I feel like that's good. They set up a third season really well, which is cool. I'm really interested to see Will and 11 interact with one another at some point in time, because that just never happened. But I do think that so I'm going to go into, because I've been reading some article stuff, and you can't have a podcast with 2 women on it without talking about some of the female characters here.
Sure.
And one of the biggest conversations that's been happening, or I read this article on Vox.com, just about how the tropes of the 80s dictate that there's a group of boys and the one girl.
Yeah.
And they had the groups. They had the kids, one girl. They had the teenagers with one girl. And they had the parents with one woman, right? And so they did a pretty good job of fleshing out those individual characters, but did they? And this idea of 11 being all powerful is not like an interesting, like that was just like the least interesting thing they could have done with that character to me. Mm-hmm. Like I feel the thing that made her interesting was interacting with the guys in the first season and kind of being this fish out of water, discovering her powers, really struggling with her own sense of stuff. Her coming and being jealous of some girl that Mike is hanging out with and then leaving is just so contrived to me that it really, really frustrated. It was the worst part of that. And you know it's coming. Like, you know it's coming when he's talking to her in the gym, and you're like, of course, she's going to come up. Like, can they not do the trope? And one of the things that this article that I was reading talked about is the idea that 11 comes from, I understand that she's been watching a lot of television, but at the same time, she shouldn't know what it means to be jealous of other women. Like, she's not been socialized in that regard, right? Mm-hmm. To like fear the power that other women have in taking her place amongst a group of boys, right? And so that jealousy comes sort of out of a really contrived place of them trying to like give her like, oh, well then she'll go off and be her own person and like learn her own things. And it's like, fine, sure, but also like she could have done that as well. Like it's not, it didn't need to be an isolating thing, right? She didn't have to feel rejected by a guy and then go off and find her mother. And like so to me, 11 was not the reason I liked Stranger Things the first time is because 11's character was really interesting and dynamic, and this time I don't think she was. And I don't think she needed to go move a train with some chick who tells her to be angry. That Yoda moment was just so contrived to me that that just doesn't need to happen.
I think that again, like everything in episode 7 of this season is set up for season 3.
And I really hope so, and I really hope that it all pays off. I really would like to see 8 again. I think her friends were interesting. I think 8's powers are interesting, right? Will. And that's cool, and I'm excited. But, and I mean, the thing, it's just like a missed opportunity for 11.
I think that the setup of 8 being like, you have to use your anger in order to be powerful, I think that that's a setup for redemption at some point where 11 realizes, and I thought it would be the end of the season.
Yeah, that she would, that's what everybody did, is that it's like she had to channel her anger, and it's like, no, she has to channel her love and the people that love her, and she needs to protect.
But that's the thing, is that this season is The Empire Strikes Back, so it can't end on
the redemption note.
Yeah, on the redemption note. Like, that's for season 3, right? That's for the 3rd installment, where she realizes that as powerful as I am with anger, we can actually defeat the Mind Flayer with the opposite. Because anger and hate, like, that's all stuff from the Upside Down. Right? So she's got to use the other side of that in order to win, right?
Which
and I think that
cool.
that'll be season 3. Yeah. And I think that because she was isolated, Hopper was isolating her. So to me, I understand where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with you, but I think from a thematic standpoint, story-wise, it makes sense for 11 to be isolated, because the story dictated that she needed to be isolated from last season, right? Yeah. Because the government's after her.
Yeah.
Now they're in a position of power where Hopper sits down with the guy and says, like, we get what we want.
Yeah,
right?
But I get where Amanda and the article are coming from, in that she was already isolated, and so she didn't need to go back to the guys and see them with another girl, and for that to be the reason she then isolated herself. Like, she could have...
No, but that's the thing, is that just if she had just left and gone to see her mom, everybody would have said, why didn't... All she wanted for the first half of the season was to see Mike. So there had to be something that when she went and saw Mike, I think that it makes, like, I agree with the criticism that it's a woman,
but it makes sense.
They could have done it differently.
Yeah, but it makes sense for the trope.
She did need to see Mike, and then something trigger her to go like, oh, I'm not part of this anymore, and feel more isolated and go off on her own journey, right?
But I think they could have done that with him, with like the government, like with something else being around him. It didn't.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. But I understand like the need for her to remain isolated in the story. Right.
It's the thing that I like hadn't thought about before until I read this Vox article where I was like, I understand that from like a trope perspective, that they needed to keep this like, they were like, we have Max now, like she's taking the place of, and the idea of her only being non-threatening for the audience when she was in a clear love triangle with like the other two kids, right? So anyways, it was interesting. Nancy, I read the GIFs afterwards. I'm jumping because this is the best part of the series that Mike said earlier, but is the Steve stuff. And the idea that in the first season was, man, Nancy deserves better than Steve. And second season's like, man, Steve deserves better than Nancy. And just like the idea.
The great thing about Steve's character is that between season 1 and 2, really like the last couple episodes of season 1 and then everything that happens in season 2, his character has such a great arc.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Of going from being and the introduction of Billy as this juxtaposition. And let me like he had his best friend from season 1 who was also a dick. Yeah. That it was like seeing Billy and interacting with Billy was like, is that how people saw me? Like you can kind of see that he gets a little bit of that, where he's like, I was never this bad. Though. Yeah. Right.
Well, the greatest thing, and one of the reasons why
Dustin. So good.
Yeah, him and Dustin. One of the reasons though I love Stranger Things, the first one, is precisely because of what they do with his character in the last episode. Like the idea that he comes back to his girlfriend who he was a jerk to and is like, I'm sorry. And then is like, what's happening? There's monsters? What's going on? And then he comes back and he fights with a bat because he's like, obviously this is what was going on, right? Like he gets it. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
I get it now. You were dealing with something that I just straight up didn't understand because it was monsters.
Yeah.
And he just, like, that is to me just the absolute best thing. But also there's hints of that earlier. Like, the trope is that she would sleep with him and then he would dump her. Like, that's the trope, right? Yeah. But instead he, like, comes to her the next day and she's feeling kind of bad and he's like, I had a good time.
The trope is that they sleep together and then one of them ends up dead, or both of them end up dead because of it, right? Like, that's the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street type trope, right? But the great twist that they put on it is that Barb dies because of their actions, right? Because, like, that's the whole morality thing of slasher and monster movies from back then, is that, like, if you break the rules, you end up dead in those movies, right? But they break the rules and Barb ends up dead. And then in season 2, for them to be together again, but for their relationship to break down for actually very real, mature reasons. Yeah. Like, there's a lot, the thing that I really love about it is that there's a lot of, like, PTSD type effects going on with all of the characters, and it manifests really differently in everybody. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, it's the most obvious in Will because he's being actually treated for that. Yeah. But Mike obviously has some issues to deal with, but his parents have no idea. So they're not dealing with any of it. Yeah. Nancy also has problems to deal with, but her parents, like, same parents. So you see that the two of them spiral a little bit out of control in season 2 because they don't have a support system. Yeah. Right? Dustin is the heart of the team, so it doesn't really affect him in the same way. He also didn't experience some of the other stuff. He didn't experience same way. Like, Dustin and Lucas are kind of sidekicky, so like they have their own story with Max. But then you see with Jonathan and Will that it's different because Joyce went through all of it too. Right. Yeah. So she knows what happened, and so she's watching. And so when Will is saying, like, I'm seeing these visions, he's not the first one who goes, maybe these are real. Yeah. Joyce is the first one in the series to go, like, is there a chance that this is actually happening to him and this isn't just the PTSD stuff?
My friend mentioned the other day, and she's like, it is so great that this character has no superpowers, like we're talking about Joyce, but just does everything in her power to save her child. And just, like, to the end of the, like, because she is a crazy like, you would label her as crazy the first season. She thought that her son was talking to her through the lights. Her son was talking to her through the lights, right? Like, this idea that she just loves unconditionally, and that being, and I love that. She again, never gives up. We talk about this idea of, like, like, what is a feminist, like, female roles, feminine roles, feminine roles, and the idea to love unconditionally to the point where it, like, makes you fierce is such a great thing that I love. That she doesn't actually kill anything, really. She just loves her son and makes the beast go away.
She's never a fighter in any of it.
Yeah, but she says she wants to punch bullies, but she's feisty in that way. Like, I don't. Yeah.
Well, she's very mama bear, but
she advocates for it though. Like, she doesn't give up. Keeps pushing without actually knocking anybody out.
And the Lonnie storyline is, like, that's really sketchy one in the first season where you're like, oh, don't let him do this to you. And guess what? She doesn't. It's not somebody else that comes in and is like, you shouldn't be with Lonnie. It's like, she figures it out. She's like, oh yeah, I'm not stupid. Like, I was vulnerable, but I get it now.
Yeah,
right?
There's, like, the backstory of, like, well, she left him in the first place. Yeah. Right? And like, especially in the 80s, like that's time period. Yeah. That shows a strength of character because back then, it's like, that was sort of the beginning of the divorce.
It's okay to leave your husband.
So like, that kind of implies that already. And then one of the things that I love the most is that there's a relationship, a very strong bond between Hopper and Joyce, but it's not romantic. Right, yeah. And I love that. So, like, that brings us to one of the standout characters of this season, which is Bob, Sean Astin's character.
Oh, so great. Poor Bob.
His death is so good because it's so meaningful, right? Somebody has to go, though, right? And they introduce a new character that at first we hate.
Yeah, I mean, at first you think he's kind of bad. I thought in the car that he was a bad guy, that he was trying to convince Will to do something that he knew would harm him, and I was like, don't listen to him. But then it turns out he was just a nice guy, which is just even more heartbreaking. Yeah. It's the
at the end of the season, the reveal that you guys know that Bob founded Hawkins AV. Right?
Yeah,
He's one of them.
Yeah,
and that's also a meta reference to the fact that Sean Astin is the main character in Goonies. And their group is modeled after Goonies, right? So there's a lot of references there, and there's a lot of levels to it. But story wise, that's really poignant that they're we're here, we're friends because of Bob, and we didn't even know it.
Yeah,
right. He petitioned Mr. Clark to start the Hawkins AV Club and donated equipment and stuff. Cool. That's just so great because retroactively you discover that he's actually their Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Someone who brings them all together.
And that he figures out the plot. He figures out the maze. He figures out the vines.
I loved that.
It makes him relevant, right? It's kind of
Sean Astin is just so good at being just a lovable geek, right?
Yeah.
He's so good at it.
I loved it when he just came into the house and was like.
He doesn't. Yeah, he's
not really questioning it. He just is doing the measurement.
Yeah, it's just I have no idea what's going on here. And then he starts to put it together, and he's like, "Wait a second, this is a map."
And this is this, and this is this.
And once he discovers the puzzle, he's like, "Oh, neat."
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, you just put a puzzle up in your house."
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, it's great that he is that just kind of lovable, oafish nerd character. And then Mr. Clark is another character that I always have to give a shout out to, their science teacher. The thing that I love about Mr. Clark is that he has a very clear, positive relationship with these students.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing weird or off-putting about it.
Yeah.
And it's it would be so easy to make him a weird character.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's a really good teacher.
Yeah.
He's a role model for anybody whoever teaches kids. It's be Mr. Clark, because he answers the phone. He's with that hot chick in season 1 and they're watching a movie and he's like, I'll pause the movie. I gotta talk to him. It's Dustin. I gotta talk to him. It's his knowledge journey or whatever.
Yeah. What is what is it? I'm on a curiosity voyage.
Yeah, curiosity voyage.
The thing I love about that is just the idea that it has the opposite effect on Max, right? When she comes in and she's like, of course it's the teacher that wants to introduce me. And he does that weird little, it's the idea that, the character doesn't have a good relationship with every student, but
but he cares. He's trying. He's there at the end and he's putting up the banner at the snowball, right? And it's you can tell that
he's a good teacher.
I think in an era where I think we do have a lot of teachers that are just kind of there because it's a job, and there are still passionate teachers, but he's sort of like a beacon and an idealized version of what the perfect teacher would be. Because I think we all have one or two of those that we interacted with
that were really great
during our education. It's like that guy. He's important. He molds them into the team that they are. They can actually solve they save the world.
Essentially,
because they've learned from him,
and they have
and he
access
has no
to
idea.
AV equipment. He
has no idea of any of that.
That's good.
Yeah. Anything else? Any closing thoughts?
I've talked a lot, so I don't know.
Anything? Who's your favorite character from season 2? This is what we call dead air.
Dead air. You're welcome. I like Dustin.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dustin's mom, man.
Dustin's mom.
Maybe not my favorite character, but one of.
We're gonna retroactively dedicate that dead air as a moment of silence to Muse.
Oh yeah.
Poor Muse. Muse didn't do anything to deserve that. Also, what happened to the turtle?
Oh yeah, just got ousted.
Dustin's turtle just disappears.
The idea of there was some beautiful moments between Dustin and Steve.
Yes.
But the idea of when did you find out that it was when did you know that your thing was a bad Demogorgon or Demodog? And he's like, well, I don't know, when it ate my cat. That that was the straw.
Yeah.
I love that.
Like, it was fine. It's totally fine.
The four puffs of Farrah Fawcett.
Oh, hairspray,
the Farrah Fawcett hairspray. And he's like, you tell anybody, your ass is crass. Which
Yeah.
is so 80s of him to say.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and then I think you slept through this one part, but the scene at the end in the car when he's dropping him off.
Oh, and he wakes up and he's like, Nancy? And Will just, like, looks at him and is like...
That's before they big fight. No, I'm talking about right before
Oh, in the car at the school dance.
Because Steve drives Dustin to the school dance.
Oh, yeah.
Which it's like, you're kind of like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And then you have to stop yourself and go like, it doesn't matter. I just love it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's happening because it's right.
Why did Dustin go?
Yeah. So he's kind of like taking on this big brother role because the thing that you don't get about Dustin, like they is never said but is heavily implied is that Dustin is the heart, he's the sensitive one because he has no male role model in his life.
Yeah.
Right? So Steve is now there and he's sort of like filling in as this big brother male role model,
cool.
which is a really cool dynamic that they kind of find each other this season and hanging around with Dustin also makes Steve a better person, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a great positive male relationship that isn't based on any sort of like macho nonsense.
Yeah. So
I really like that.
Yeah, cool.
Steve's my favorite character.
Is that your favorite character?
What about you?
I can't talk. I don't know who my favorite character is because I want to say 11, but I just don't like what they did with her because she was my favorite character in the first season. Yeah. By far.
For sure.
I mean, I like what they're doing with 8. Like, I want that to become more of a thing. I think you got a glimpse into what she could possibly be.
Yeah.
But, Joyce killed it as well. Obviously, Steve is the cliche answer. I like the Jonathan-Nancy relationship. I think that a lot of people don't like the Jonathan-Nancy relationship.
I like how destructive it is. I like it for the story because, like, I like what it does for Steve's character, and I like what it does to those two characters because it moves them in a really interesting direction. Yeah.
Are you a Snancy or a Jancy?
I guess a Jancy because I think that Steve can do better.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I think that in season 3 we can introduce a new
female character.
Or I mean, like, is Stevethan an answer that I can give?
Stevethan?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do it. I like it.
Just like my...
Wait, you think Nancy's too good for Steve? You don't think Jonathan... Or you don't think Steve's too good for Jonathan, I mean? You don't think Steve's too good for Nancy?
I think he is, but I mean, like, I'll allow it.
Yeah, fair. Okay.
I'll allow it.
Anyways, like I say...
Just as long as Billy it continues his relationship with the mom. The syringe.
We did not talk about Billy and the mom scene.
Oh, God.
Which is one of the greatest scenes, I think, in the whole season.
So good.
You have her sitting there, like...
That was, like, very John Hughes, very, like, sort of Ferris Bueller-ish.
And the idea that it fits so perfectly with Mike's parents, like, the fact that... that like the dad is just
the worst.
This, but in a way that like is endearing, and you're kind of like, okay,
he's harmless.
He's
not actively a terrible husband. He's very passively a terrible husband. Yeah, exactly.
But it's
he's
just
very
like,
much
so
an
perfect.
80s dad.
Yeah,
like he's like that's just he's just a.
It's so perfect.
Is he reading his paper?
Yeah. He works hard.
Yeah, and he just
doesn't have the energy to put up with these 2 kids and his wife. It's like he just wants to come home.
3 kids.
Oh yeah, 3 kids. The younger one. Yeah. He just wants to come home and watch the news and maybe some sports
sit in his recliner, right?
And go to sleep. Yeah.
But anyways, so that was you just love Billy for that.
Yes.
So as much as we hate Billy, I do have to say maybe he's my favorite new addition.
Billy is an interesting character because he's also a victim.
Exactly.
Right?
You get that idea.
Dynamic. Yeah, you hate him up until that point where you realize he's responsible for his actions, but
he's also
he's being abused, right?
Yeah. So it's like you get that really interesting, like there's always a story behind each why a person is doing something.
The thing that I love about it is that it's a really great example of that toxic masculinity aspect where it's like the dad is very masculine, very macho, and very much obviously we don't even have to have seen it on screen to know that his dad hates the earring, hates the haircut, hates all the leather jacket because it's all this all this George Michael crap, right? Like, it's like, you be a man. Like, why you got the long hair, right? Like, you know that those conversations have already happened between the two of them, and all of that toxic masculinity stuff, and the effect that it has on Billy that is then passed on to Max. Yeah. Right? And you see the chain of abuse. Yeah. And where you have to, like, a person has to break that cycle at a certain point. And so hopefully in season 2, Billy can have a redemptive arc where maybe he does start to break that cycle and he can become a better person. Sorry, season 3.
They did want him to have, they wanted to have a villainous character that was like a main, like a somebody to come in that was a human. Yes. I kind of do like that. It's one of the things I think that they waffle on sometimes, but sometimes it's nice to just have somebody who is mean and there's nothing you could, like, right? Like, they're just a mean character. Yeah. But I hope that we get to explore more of Max next season. And I really want her and 11. Yeah, Max, 8, and 11 to like grow more as characters. Yeah. In interesting ways. I think Joyce is solid. I think Nancy's solid. It'll be cool to keep them around. But yeah, seeing where they're going.
Yeah, I'd like to see Max and 11 do some stuff together.
Like, I'd like to see 11 mentor Max and Max mentor 11 because they both have skills that the other one does not have. Yeah. Like, and I think it'd be really interesting to see them learn from one another as, like, reluctant friends. Like, the idea that the other guys wouldn't quite get their friendship, but that's, like, the beauty of, like, female friendships when you're young, right? Like, sometimes they don't make sense because there's no way these two people would be friends if it weren't for the group of people that they were hanging with, right? And you just get, like, it's what can you learn from each other in those moments. I really hope that they learned, male writers of series, how to write female relationships in a really genuine way. And I think that there's space for that. I think they've set up space for that in the series, and I really want them to explore that more in a more, like, genuine, in-depth way. So.
And I do think that they did an okay job of it, even though it was very short, with 11 and 8. Yeah, yeah. Because they had some of that in there. That was...
You could see it going somewhere. Like, there's definitely something.
Where, like, you saw the glimpse of it.
Yeah, there's a seed planted. So we'll see where it leads us.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, obviously, we really liked Stranger Things too. Yeah. And
not without its flaws, but you know.
But overall, really good. Yeah. So that's it for this Spoilercast. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to support ThunderQuack, you can do that a couple of ways. You can do that first by heading to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch. For one of our podcasts. And you can also head to patreon.com/ThunderQuack, where if you're listening to this on YouTube, you could be listening to this as an MP3 if you support us at the $5 level or above. So check that out. And if you are listening to this on or
as
watching, listening on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. And maybe even share this and tell some people about it.
Good. And thank you to our Patreon subscribers for supporting us and making us do these awesome Spoilercasts, because I'd like to talk about other things.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you on the next Spoilercast, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks for Justice League.
Probably. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for listening.
Stay frosty. I don't know what to do at the end of a Spoilercast.
Good night. Sleep time.
Good.